What's up everyone, and welcome back to more Reddit stories about entitled people, insane people, and all that kind of stuff. So as usual, be sure to subscribe for more Reddit content if you haven't already, and let's get into today's stories. Evil teacher fails me for a sound clip she found repulsive, so I put it everywhere. This occurred way back in my junior year of high school, around 2002. I was in a computer class. It was a very general class where we learned how to type, but also got a little familiarity with stuff like Adobe Photoshop and Music Studio. The teacher who normally taught the class had a baby prior to the semester that I took the class, so a substitute teacher covered her entire maternity leave. The substitute was a complete bitch. The fun and entertainment I got from the original teacher's typing class that I had taken the semester before was now replaced by an evil woman who expected us to be professionals at programs we had only just learned about. Nobody in the class had higher than a B average. She dumped on my first Photoshop assignment because she didn't like the subject matter. It was a mech robot with a Gundam-inspired energy sword that I drew and colored by hand, taking me nearly a month to complete. I used Photoshop to clean up some of the rough edges and make it look more realistic, a feat that should have been awarded high marks, but because she hated the subject matter, it got a D+. The next week, we started our segment on Music Studio. Her assignment was to create a music clip that sounded weird or funny. I found a synthwave in the program labeled Final Crash and played it to myself, a descending crescendo followed by a final beat and an upbeat chord. Using the software, I created a loop of the sound clip and reversed it, playing the sound forward and reversed in repeating patterns for about 15 seconds. My fellow students found the resulting music to be hilarious, but the teacher absolutely hated it, even going into dry heaves at the sound of it. She gave me a 0 on the assignment and threatened me with detention if I ever played the sound again. I was already on the brink of failing my class prior to this because of the way she was grading my work, so this was the determining factor for me to take revenge. I didn't mind a few detentions from a teacher I disliked if it meant making her life a living hell for a few weeks, as a taste of the hell she put me through. A friend of mine worked for the IT of the school as part of his aspirations to get a computer science degree. I gave him the offending sound clip, and he notified the teacher that he needed to perform an update on her computer during her lunch break. My class was after her lunch, so I got to see my revenge in all of its glory. My friend went into the sound files of her computer and replaced all of her notification sounds with a 3-second sound piece of this sound clip. Every time she received an email, instant message, or any other warning from her computer, the sound would play at nearly maximum volume. The added bonus being that to prevent students from tampering with teachers' computers, they needed to input an IT password to access the control panels and turn it off. It was an IT password they didn't share with substitute teachers because of access to grading and transcripts. Substitute teacher had a complete meltdown after just 2 emails from IT about the computer update. She sent me to the office and tried to have me expelled because of this sound. Our principal laughed her out of the office. Substitute teacher unplugged her computer and took emails and instant messages on her phone for the entire duration of the final 2 weeks of class. The other students in my class used to play the sound clip from their computers to annoy her. We even managed to get the sound clip played during the morning announcements, which I can only imagine made her throw things at the television. When the original teacher returned from her maternity leave at the beginning of my senior year, she changed my grade in the previous semester's class from a D to an A+ after reviewing my assignments. Revenge achieved. Neighbors stupidly caused themselves to be landlocked. State, Minnesota. The vertical gray strip on the left side of the image is the public main road. I own the land in pink. Our private road we use to access it is entirely on our land, surrounded by pink, denoted by our road. It has a locked gate, and the sides of our land that are against roads are fenced. We have remotes for it or can open and close it from our house. The neighbor used to own the land in blue and purple, but sold the purple land to someone else a couple of weeks ago. They accessed their property by a gravel road on the purple land before, but the person who owns it now is planning on getting rid of that gravel road. Apparently when they sold the land, they were assuming they could start using our private driveway instead. They didn't actually check with us first. They've effectively landlocked themselves ultimately. The neighbors want to use our road, denoted in gray, and make a gravel road from our road onto their property in blue that they still own. We've had some heated discussion about it and things went downhill fast. They say that by not giving them access to our private road, we are infringing the rights of their property ownership. Now they are threatening to sue us. If they sue us, is it likely that a judge would require us to let them use our road? Do we need to lawyer up? Update. I got a lawyer and met with them. We hashed out a plan and I was feeling pretty good about everything. Yesterday, Sunday, around noon, the purple landowners finished fencing in their property. My neighbors came home at about 3 p.m. and rang at the gate several times. I was advised by you guys as well as my lawyer to not let them in my gate even once, as that would set a precedent of them being allowed to use it, so I ignored the ringing. Eventually, the husband got out of the car and walked around to the other side of my property, which is not yet fenced in. He used that to get to my house and knocked on the door. I answered and told him I will not allow him to use my gate and to leave my property. He told me he wouldn't leave until I opened the gate so his wife could drive the car through. I said I would not do so and threatened to call the police. He left and went back to the car. Then they started ringing the gate again. I looked out the window and they had a police officer with them. I went to the gate and informed the police officer that this is my property and I will not allow them to drive on it. I said that they have no legal right to access my property. Then I walked back to the house. After a couple of minutes, the police officer walked around to get onto my land and to the house and knocked at the door. He said that because their land is landlocked, I need to allow them to use my road until another solution can be figured out, and I can't just deny them access to their property. I called my lawyer, who spoke with the police officer on the phone. The police officer acknowledged that he cannot force me to let them drive on my property, but that he strongly encourages me to work this out with my neighbors in a civil manner. He left. The neighbors left their car in front of my gate, walked around to the unfenced part of my land, walked across my yard and onto their own property. I called my lawyer. We reported them for trespassing today. They left their car there until about 10 a.m. this morning. Tonight I was visited by the sheriff. He told me very short and sweet that I cannot deny my neighbors access to their property via an established road. He said, I better not get another call. From this point forward, you will allow them to get to and from their property and will not lock them out or in. Then he walked away. Called the lawyer. I am meeting with the lawyer in the morning. I am planning to ask her the following questions. Is there a point where I should give in to a police officer's request that I let them use my road? If they block my gate again, can I have their car towed? The way they parked it, I would not have been able to leave my property via the gate. They were parked on my land at the time, not on the public road. And in response to how the sheriff called OP's private road an established road, a commenter here says, your driveway is not an established road. However, if you start letting him use it, it will become an established road. You're going to have to be stubborn up against the cop. He's leading you in the wrong direction and it could be detrimental to you. Ironically, the road he previously used on Purple Guy's property is an established road, and the cop should have been telling that guy he couldn't block his access. Final update. First things first, everything worked out in my favor. My wife was upset by the entire situation and especially concerned with our children, and she got involved as well. She spoke with some friends who were able to get her in touch with the local city council. They could not explicitly do anything direct to help us, but did get us in touch with some of the right people to discuss our situation. One of the most important results from those connections was learning that the sheriff who we spoke to was actually a deputy who was acting on the sheriff's behalf. We were able to meet with the actual sheriff. He did agree that we should be more open to compromise, but was much more willing to admit that we had no immediate legal reason to do so, and no interest in forcing us to. My lawyer made a key point of the fact, I use the term loosely, that if the neighbors require an easement to access their land, they should do so with the land they sold, and not with unrelated land. After a lot of back and forth but no court proceedings, luckily, with the other party, their attention was refocused on the buyer of their land. Funny enough, it's a small world, and I ended up meeting the buyer, who was in my lawyer's office for a consultation with one of his partners. He ended up needing to get a different lawyer, since I already had a lawyer from the firm as I understand it, but we did keep in contact to some extent. Now some speculation. We believe that the reason the neighbors didn't bother us for a while was their finances. Their lawyer was happy to keep pushing as long as he was getting paid, but when money ran dry, he lost interest. Due, we believe, to those financial problems as well as their inability to find a quick solution, the neighbors ultimately moved into town and lived with family there for several months. The neighbor on the other side gave them one-time access with a moving truck. Their lawyer had been showing up with them but was gone at that time, which is another reason I suspect major money issues. In the fall, the situation picked up again with contact from a new lawyer this time. This new lawyer requested a meeting with us, and our lawyer, of course. He requested that we consider buying their property to resolve the issue. We initially said no. They offered it to the owner on the other side. They said no. They sweetened the pot. Eventually the price was right and my wife and I developed an interest in more land. We discussed terms, then decided against it. They went a little cheaper again. We purchased their land. I nearly posted an update once the purchase was complete, but there was an additional interesting detail that came out of the woodwork and brought new legal questions. The neighbors had used their land and home as collateral for an informal loan, and the person who lent to them wanted the property when they failed to repay him. He came after us. The outcome of this was that they are the ones who failed their end of the contract, so his problem was with the neighbors, not with us. This is definitely a sideline from the original situation, but caused a delay in my ability to update. As of today, my wife and I are out a substantial amount of money due to legal fees, which it turned out was not worth going after from the neighbors. There is also bad news in that the home on that property was essentially worth even less than we thought, and there were major issues beyond the land itself. Septic tank failure, leaking oil tank. Those expenses were slightly mitigated by insurance, but we were out a good sum. We also had a hard time combining the plots, which was legally desirable to build anything that straddled the two property lines. However, the plots are now combined into one large plot. The good news is that the neighbors are no longer an issue for us, and by the summer their property should be in good shape to use for a new project of our own. On one hand, I will say this. The little chunk of land was definitely not worth the time and stress involved in this process, nor the money. However, the outcome was positive for our family, for which there is no dollar value, and it's all over with now. Okay, now speaking in a purely non-legal sense, how dumb do you have to be to sell off a section of your own property that you need to still be able to access your own, without even figuring out an easement or anything of the sort beforehand? And then immediately just demanding access to your property through someone else's property that has nothing to do with this. It's like, come on man, you made this problem yourself, just leave me out of this. And it's also the cherry on top that he used his own property as collateral for an unofficial loan with someone, and then sold the property without even telling the lender. Yeah, considering all that, it actually does sound like exactly the kind of person that would accidentally landlock their own property. Alright guys, that's gonna do it for today. Thank you for watching. As always, I do appreciate it. If you enjoyed, be sure to hit that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe if you haven't already. So take care, stay tuned for more, and I'll see you in the next one.